Hello and welcome back to the Champion Draft Series. We got a very special episode here today. This week we didn't have any games, but this is the trade week. This is the mid-season. We've got a lot to talk about. As you can see, I've got a lot of members of the team here with me today. First off, Joey Sticks. Joey, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, Pink. Very excited for this week because of rotation and stuff. So a lot of new champions. There's a lot of new brews that might come along. So I'm very excited to see CDS for the next weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot of exciting stuff happening in Runeterra right now, and those new champions might very well make their way into some of these players' rosters. We'll go into that a little bit more in a bit. I've also got We the Peoples here. Peoples, how have you been doing, my man?
Yo, been pretty chill, Ghost. I'm super excited to get into some of this cool content, and definitely excited to see how it goes.
Myself as well. And then last but not least, we've got Monty. Monty, it's been a little bit since we've had you on here. How you been doing?
It has been a while, but I've been doing well, Ghost. I hope the same is true for you. Super excited to get into this week's business and break down all the action that's coming your way.
Yeah, a lot of action indeed. A lot of these players will show up on screen right now, the standings that we currently have. But yeah, we have a few players just a little bit in the lead as of now. But right now, a lot of the competition still very neck and neck. Even the players that are lower on the roster still have a bit of a chance to make it up. They can still fight for their place in the top 4 and make it to finals. So it's going to be really tight competition moving forward from here. And as we are in this mid-season break and our players are having an opportunity to go into some trades, we wanted to talk a bit about each of these players' rosters and what weaknesses they might have and what they might be looking for to sort of improve in their roster. If you've been following the Champion Draft Series channel this week, you've noticed that we've been posting interviews with each of the players and their own thoughts, but now from like a little bit more of an analyst standpoint, I want to sort of dive in to these players' rosters, starting with the first pick of the draft, Puffball Panda, currently 3-1. Looking at her roster, how do we feel currently?
I think she's got a lot of access to good regions, and I think she'll want to continue to keep some of those champions, but there are some champions that she hasn't used, namely something like Bard. Bard is not a particularly powerful champion, hasn't received any love in recent patches. That could definitely be one that she's looking to offload either onto somebody else or in exchange for one of the open picks. Could definitely see that going. I know she also hasn't used Diana yet, but I doubt that she's willing to trade that one, given that that is her homegirl, her lesbian love. But I'm excited to see what she does come up with for this trade section, see where she takes her lineup.
Sure, and let's also talk a bit about this was sort of the talk at the beginning of the draft, sort of like the main story, how she drafted Echo and Jinx, but no Shuriman champ to pair and give her that Shuriman region. Peoples, what do you feel? How do you feel about that? And you think there's a Shuriman champ that she might try to gun for?
Yeah, I was literally just about to talk about that because I did definitely notice that Puffball did choose Jinx and Echo, but no Shuriman champion. It was definitely weird to say the least in the draft, but I could definitely see her trying to pick up a Shuriman champion for sure to make use of one of these champions.
Yeah, hopefully. So this will be, it's gonna be really interesting to see. I think that Puffball overall has probably the most to gain from this trading period. I think that she has a lot that she can build on, which is really exciting to see, seeing as she's currently ahead of most of the competitors. Like, that's a very good place to be in, I would say. But going into Absolution, who is a little bit lower on the bracket right now, our Jin Cannon enthusiast. We the Peoples, how do you currently feel about this guy's roster?
I mean, it's Absolution. I honestly, I think he's the biggest wild card, right? Who knows where his mind or his draft could go. I mean, personally, I don't know what he's testing. he could have some crazy things that we don't even know about, that we have absolutely no idea. So honestly, I'm looking forward to the content. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, I know we're all looking forward to the content. Monty, about these champions that we have yet to see being brought from Absolution, such as Tristana, such as Jax. I know Tristana was kind of brought back a little bit by the atrocity nerf that you and I talked about week 1, but that's actually been reverted. Do you think this changes his strategy into the draft going forward?
Yeah, I think Tristana becomes an option for him once again, especially given that he's already playing something like Shadow Isles, Triss. Still, with Tristana having access to Atrocity once again, she's definitely a champion that we could see him opt to play in the upcoming weeks. We could also just see him trade her off, but the region itself is a lot less valuable than it was previously. He does not have access to Noxus or Bilgewater, which are two of the hottest regions right now. So I would definitely imagine that he is going to be looking to add one of those two to his roster for the upcoming weeks.
One of those new champions, yeah, that little extra spice, and he's going to be one of the earlier ones getting access to these trades, so I would not be surprised if we saw him gunning for that. Joey, I'm going to get into Mafroju's roster right now, and I know that you know her very well as a fellow Brazilian, and she is currently undefeated, so I don't know how many weaknesses you could say that her lineup really has, but how do you feel about her roster right now?
Mafroju's definitely built a roster that works really well for her. I'm not sure about the new champions, like if there's anything interesting that she might want to have, like as a personal pick, but if she finds a new champion that is another favorite of hers, maybe something Noxus, that could lead her to a stronger lineup nowadays that Noxus is having like such a high of good cards such as All Out and Samira. So like definitely I think maybe if she likes those champions, her roster is gonna become even more powerful than it already is, and it might give her a bit more flexibility for her Noxus style decks. I don't think she has any that are very strong right now. I think her only Noxus champion is Raven, correct?
Correct.
So that champion has not been good for a while. So if she gets like a good pick, maybe Samira or another Noxus champion that might be better into her lineup, maybe now that some time has passed, she managed to find something that is probably more interesting than Draven, I guess. This could be another few weeks of Mafroju dominance for CDS.
Certainly something that I'm sure the other players very much fear, but something that I could totally see happening. The only champion that she hasn't played so far in the series right now is Tryndamere, and that may go back to the atrocity thing that we were talking about earlier. What do you guys think about Tryndamere in her roster? Do you think that's something that she might look to be trading for something else, or do you think that has its place right now?
I think Freljord is a good region to have access to right now. They did get a couple new cards, nothing too special or standout, but the region itself has powerful defensive tools, it has some reasonable offensive tools as well, and it's got a lot of options, even for like equipment decks. You can go mid-range, you can go combo with Ashe if you wanted to. There's a lot of availability in the Freljord region, so I think getting rid of it might be a mistake, but maybe we'll see Tryndamere swapped out for something else, because as a champion he is a little bit lackluster.
That's definitely something to look forward to. Speaking of Freljord champions, as well as a few others, I want to go to our other Brazilian competitor, Capitão. He has several champs that he hasn't played in his roster so far, such as Braum, another Freljord champ, but also the Vlad. He hasn't played Heimer yet, and his S-Cost champion that he drafted, Twisted Fate, has yet to see any play in this series. Does this make sense to you guys, or is this something that is quite odd and you think we might see any weird trades coming?
I mean, I think it is a little bit weird that TF didn't see absolutely any play in any of the lineups. But I mean, TF, I guess, is one of those champs that you have to like build a whole deck around, kind of. Like I guess unless you have a certain champion that like is able to pair with him decently, like maybe a Swain or even like Sejuani or something like that. to get like value off of TF. I guess it could be hard to get decent amount of value, but I don't know. I've always seen TF as 4-mana, draw a card, get it in a tune. So I don't know. He's always been pretty good to me.
I also think it's a little bit odd that we have not seen TF come out yet from Capitao. Like Peoples was saying, TF, while he is a high synergy champ in some situations, does have that base power level that is just heads and shoulders above everybody else. The access to all 3 different cards is so powerful and gives him so much versatility, which is something that's very, very important, especially in a limited format like this Champion Draft Series.
Joey, you interviewed Capitao earlier this week, which some of our viewers might have already gotten a chance to watch. How do you feel he is approaching this trade week, and do you think he might integrate some of these other champions, or do you think he's very much locked down? What are your thoughts on this?
As I mentioned before, he's a very, like to you interviewers, he's a very good deck builder. Every meta he builds something different. Every meta he tries to counter the meta in a different way and gets to masters doing so. And I feel like TF is definitely something that we haven't seen before, but this is a new season and some very interesting draw cards have come out. If you think about the regions that we've just been like talking about, some very interesting draw cards have come out, and TF was rotated for a reason. So we might be seeing some very crazy something going on with TF from Capitao next week as he tries to play around the new cards. I guess the new cards are going to be, even if you don't get a new champion, a new card coming for the set is definitely going to impact a lot, especially for TF. He was rotated for a reason. And I know Capitão Circuit likes Set a lot, the champion itself. I think for his roster he has a different Ionia champion that I don't remember being very synergistic. It was either Lee or something just to get Ionia.
Master Yi. He might trade Master Yi for Set, and I don't think that would be a very strong competition. I don't think anyone would fight him for it, because anyone can access the coins without getting Set. But I definitely think, because of his love for his champion, just like Mafra, this is his pet champion, he might just go for Set early on and get Ionia without Master Yi. And the coin synergy might be enough to bring maybe a TF set build, which could be very interesting. Maybe going with Sign-In and the new Draw 2 Ionia card. Like, maybe that's something very interesting going on there. You've definitely piqued my interest a little bit, and I can't wait to watch Capitao going forward with that. Let's talk a little bit about Elzon, who is the 5th pick in the draft, and to many of the other drafters, basically the bane of their existence, as she just swallowed up like half of Piltover and Zon throughout the draft. Now, this allowed her to deny this region from a lot of players, but is it also a weakness, especially when she's got Runeterran champions like Kayn and so much of her roster is PNZ? Do you think she's maybe going to try to alleviate this a little bit? What are you guys' thoughts?
PNC is another region that got a little bit of love this expansion. The the Flash Bomb Peddler showed up, which makes Caitlyn a bit more of a powerful champion. I'd be very interested to see if she becomes a force to be reckoned with in the upcoming weeks. But as far as Elzon's oversaturation of PNZ champions, I think she's definitely got to offload. PNZ itself as a region is pretty narrow. It doesn't have a lot of options. It has a little bit of burn, sure, but its units are kind of middling at best. And it has some generation, which is great. Pharaoh's a great card, but again, kind of a middling unit. So being very pigeonholed into PNZ as a region limits what you can do, because it does need to be paired with a secondary region to have its greatest effect.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I definitely agree with that, Monty. I could also see her maybe doing something along the lines of maybe it could be something like she keeps like a certain amount of PNZ champs and tries to trade away maybe the Kayn, and try to trade away maybe a lot of the Runeterran champions, and maybe try to bring in more other regions so that she can pair them more more well with the PNZ champs that she has. But I mean, I think Elzon is another person that is like it's like a not a question mark, but more like you don't really necessarily know what she's cooking. Like she might pair some champs up that you'll be like, wait, what is that? And then you see it played and like, hey, that might be pretty good. Like, you know, I don't know. I'm just waiting to see what Elzon's gonna cook.
She's already brought Timo Hecarim more than once, which I think is basically exactly what you just said. But moving on to our 6th pick in the draft, and someone who, if you watch the interview I had with Tempo Mao, has basically said he's perfectly happy with his lineup already, which was a very bold claim. He basically said he's going to be bringing the same decks to every match moving forward, which definitely gives the opponents an advantage if they prepare for this. But he's definitely got some very powerful lists with LeBlanc Ashe, Reputation, with Azir Aurelia, with Misfortune Swain Pirates. He's been doing a lot of damage with these lists. So I wanted to get your guys' feel of if you think this is enough, or you think he still needs to find some utility in this trade week, if there's something we need to see him swap for.
I'll jump right at the opportunity to talk about my boy Tempo. Tempo has been absolutely crushing it this season. I think he's done a phenomenal job of making use of all his different options. I do think Nautilus is a really weak champion. I think Callista is also a little bit weak, but she gives you access to Shadow Isles and is just a very general champ that you could just splash as a 3-4 fearsome unit. So that one I'd be more inclined to believe will stay. Yumi's another one that is a little bit more pigeonholed, and while she does give you access to Targon, which can be super valuable, she requires a certain build around to be effective, and that can be difficult to achieve. Now, he could pair her with the Shyvana and keep both of those, but I would definitely imagine that Tempo is going to be looking to offload Nautilus in at least some capacity. Sea Monsters are not that great, and you're not going to be playing Nautilus without Sea Monsters in your deck.
I think that's a very good read. Does anyone else think there's anything else that Tempo might want to adjust in his lineup, or do you think he's strong enough as is?
Nah, I think Tempo's a gamer. If he's locked, he's locked.
Yeah, I think he might be playing onto his strengths, just as Matthew's doing. So, like, if those are his strengths, he's gonna refine them, maybe add some new cards, maybe play around with some new stuff, but eventually those are the decks that he's gonna be locked down, as with the people said, and hopefully he gets more results with it. I'm definitely cheering for him. I definitely think such love for champions and strategies should be rewarded in some way.
Yeah, it seems like we're all pretty excited for Tempo and confident for him, and he definitely still has a good run for the finals ahead of him. So we'll have to see how that goes. Aikado we're going to talk about next. Now, Aikado was definitely one of the favorites among viewers for making it to the top, but he started off this season not the strongest. Going into week 3, he was 1-2. He's now 2-2 with a lot of the other competition, but doesn't have access to as many regions as the others, but does have access to a lot more flexibility. With multiple Noxus champions, he's been able to do aggro, he's been able to do control variants, as well as like mid-range combo-y lists. Like while he's been lacking in regions, he has been able to flex more in archetypes, but he has yet to play any of his Ionian champs. So do you think that he's going to look to trade to get access to other regions that he's currently lacking, such as maybe Shadow Isle, such as maybe more PNZ? What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I could definitely see Aikado trading to get some kind of SI access for sure. I just think that he's just I don't know. I don't want to. I feel like I don't want to say that Aikado is like the best player here, but I think he's a pretty flexible player. And I think the fact that he can play a lot of different archetypes definitely is reflected in the way that he picks his champions.
I mean, like, Aikado definitely, he's a very focused, I guess, player, and he plays around the player. Sometimes I feel like that's the strategy that he approaches. He doesn't play the game, he plays the player. So for the first week, he managed, I think he got, okay, I'm gonna test out some waters, I'm gonna build some of my decks that I enjoy playing. That didn't go so well. For the second week, he went, okay, I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna play my player. He'd switch it up in the next week and the next week. He's a very versatile player and definitely one of a very good player as well. So I'm hoping to see some very interesting plays as the meta shifts and the players adapt. This is going to throw off Ricardo a little bit of his game. He might be onto the water a bit, trying to figure out what everyone else is doing. Well, once he gets that, we are going to see some very dominant champions and strategies from him as well. I think he's one of the candidates to be grabbing that Samira early on. I definitely think he's going to try and get his new deck that he's been trying out these early weeks of the set, the new set. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping to see something different from Aikado the next few weeks.
I think, as others have said, Aikado is such a flexible player, and as I have harped on over and over again already, flexibility is so very important to this draft format. So given that he hasn't played Karma or Yasuo, and knowing that he's not the biggest Yasuo fan out there, I could definitely see him swapping out the Yasuo for something else. It's not the most powerful champion still. Again, hasn't really received much love. There was like one stun card added in this expansion with Pirouette, but that's not gonna do anything to make Yasuo a viable deck, right? So I would expect that Kato maybe swaps it out. Like Joey said, he's probably looking to pick up that Samira. That champion is very much within his wheelhouse and within his comfort zone. We'll see what he actually manages to do and what he's able to grab, but I would expect that he is gunning to pick up Samira for sure.
And last but not least, we have Spids, who, like Tempo, it's really hard to argue is going to potentially be drafting away some of their champions, but for the exact opposite reason. Spids has brought every one of her champions to at least one game so far, has been really utilizing her roster. But I was interviewing her earlier this week, and she said that she might want to potentially look for strategies that are a little less mid-rangey. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think that would be a good move for her. I think she's pigeonholed herself pretty heavily into the mid-range archetype, and while I know that is where she's comfortable, it's not flexible. And I'll harp on it again one more time, just for the record. Flexibility is so important. You need to be able to change your game plan, just like we've seen with Aikado and how he's found his success, being able to play the player and change his plan around the player. Spids hasn't really been able to do the same thing because of the way she's drafted her champions. So we'll see if she can make an adjustment coming into this exchange week and where she ends up afterwards.
All right, well, that is all of our players as far as trade weeks go, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do over these next few days and how the rosters change going into the later half of the season. Will they change a lot? Will they change very little? Remains to be said, remains to be seen. So we will have to watch out for that, and on the next recap, it's probably something that you'll find me and Joey discussing a little bit a week from now. But moving on, I want to get a little serious with you guys right now, because we're halfway through the season. We still have another half to go, so there's still plenty of time for players to switch things up, for players to drop the ball, for players to like really pick up their game. But looking at finals, which is now a lot closer than it was at the beginning of the season, and looking at how our players have currently been performing, I wanted to talk a little bit on who we think has what it takes to win it all. Joey, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it has to be my girl Mafaju. I've always been a fan of her, and I always cheer for my Brazilian friends. You don't get to dictate how I do it. I'm always cheering for the Brazilian friends. And she's eventually, like, it's luckily for me, she's a very good player, very cracked player. As you mentioned before, I have watched her take on Fight Night and other money prizes competitions. I have watched her take seasonals. She's casted seasonals before. She's a very cracked player, has been around for a very long time. And as we mentioned, she's comfortable. This is her arena. We're in Glory in Avora. You're gonna see a lot of duels, and this is her arena. She definitely has some very good champions. She has some very good synergies and archetypes. She knows how to play. She knows how to play well, and she's a very cracked player. So I'm hoping, almost hoping, I guess. I'm cheering very much for her to take on the CDS. And I think she has a very decent shot at taking it, especially since I've seen her face Aikaro, which is another player which I would guess can take the CDS. So after seeing that first week of her just chilling and just wrecking Aikaro absolutely with her roster, I've been feeling a bit more hopeful that she can take him on. But Aikaro and the others are not gonna make it easy for her, so I'm hoping also that she adapts into them as CDS moves into a week of adaptations of versatility, as we've been speaking about in this program.
Yeah, and she's not going to have too hard of a time making it into the top, as she is currently undefeated. So that record sort of speaks for itself. But Peoples, if someone were to take down Mafurju, if someone were to jump up into the finals and perhaps take it all, who do you think it's going to be?
Yo, I'm sorry. I got to give it up for my boy Aikaro, right? I'm gonna be that guy, right? The person that everybody favors, probably somebody that you guys know from streams, from Twitch, everywhere. You know, I'm sorry, I gotta be that guy. He has stats, right? He has stats to back up what he has shown, and like we've said throughout this whole cast, he has the flexibility, right? Also, like Joey Six had said, if there's anybody to take down Mafurju, it might be Aikaro. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think personally, like we had stated earlier, I think Aikaro coming into this, it was a little bit rough, mostly because you know, it's a different format. It's more of a draft format. You kind of, you know, you got to feel the waters a little bit. You know, you got, you know, when you go to the pool, you know, you don't just drop yourself right on in, right? You gotta ease your toe in. You gotta, you know, feel it out a bit. But then once you understand what you're going into, you become a shark, right? You become like, all right, I know how to do this, and that's what I think Aikaro was doing, right? I think he's feeling it out. He's getting a little feel for how everybody plays. He's like, oh, okay, you do that? All right. I know how to face you next time. Okay. And he's gonna take it all. He's gonna come back. He's gonna take it all. Pretty much take the whole CDS. And I'm looking forward to how he does it, honestly.
And he certainly can find himself inspired easily with a hype man like you people. But it's going to be a great journey of his to watch. But Monty, who do you think stands a chance in the ring with these two?
You know they're all gonna bow down to the great demon overlord Mao-sama. Like, Temple's gonna come out here and beat everybody up. Come on, how can you not put your money on this guy? He's got some of the most powerful and most aggressive deck options available out of anybody. Like, the amount of pressure that these decks can put out is absolutely incredible. His champion availability is nuts. We talked about it earlier, how he can even upgrade without losing much by trading away that Nautilus. There's no way that he doesn't come out of this trade period ahead. Tempo is an absolutely terrifying monster, and you would know that if you watched his stream.
Oh, man, wow. It took me a bit by surprise, Monty. But yeah, I would have to agree with you. He's been quite a terrifying force throughout this series. So yeah, man, I'm going to have to throw my foot into the ring for a second. I am going to have to suggest Puffball Panda, which I know going into the Champion Draft Series, if you're looking at this entire roster of players, I know many of the viewers might have doubts about these claims, but look at the numbers, right? Look at the numbers. The only person that Puffball has lost to so far in the series has been our first place player, Mafurju herself, and that was partially due to a misplay during her game versus Mafurju's Ezreal Sejuani list, which I am sure she's learned from. And since then, she has taken Tom Kench to new heights, beating you down with him without even needing the Star Spring. How many times have you seen that happen? She is ahead of the rest of the competition in numbers right now, with the exception of Mafraju, and can easily come back and give us a little bit of a revenge story against her. I think she's going to have an easier time climbing into the top than the rest, and I think that currently Puffball doubters have very little to say as of the moment. I think the numbers do not lie, and she definitely has a lead on the series, and we will see what she does to continue that streak. But yeah, obviously we all have our favorite players, or players that we think are very on edge to go into the finals of this series, but it's honestly so close. There's many players that we did not currently speak about that could easily take it all and just make us all look like fools on the show right here. So we're just gonna have to see. But before we wrap this up, I wanted to give each of us an opportunity, because we don't really get to do this in the recap. We just sort of like talk about the stats, talk about the stories, talk about the highlights. But what have been your guys' favorite moments in the series so far? I'll give you a chance to go first, Joey. But what has really been your favorite moment in the series so far? I know you've gotten to spectate a lot of the games specifically yourself, so there's got to be something, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this format has really given players the opportunity to make really creative plays, as we've mentioned before in a few of the recaps. I know that for me, I guess what has really been like a nail-biting moment was when Captain Circuit yanked a Vayne spell out of his pocket that he generated turn 2 with Reggie to take the win. So you gotta condemn him, I guess. It was very nail-biting. It had been a very difficult series for him against, I think it was Spids. And then he just took that out, and I was watching from Speed's perspective, so I was like, oh my god, what is happening? And then he took that out, and I was like, nah man, you had that since turn 2, are you kidding me? But yeah, that was a very nail-biting moment for sure, and I think that's like the beauty of this format. We get to see really interesting builds being used very creatively in some very tense moments such as this one.
Yeah, and we're going to have even more opportunities now that this series is in the Eternal format, and it's going to be able to, we're going to be able to see a lot of different cards that you wouldn't normally see in Standard now, be able to mix with some of these new cards we're getting in really unique ways. So excited to see how that plays out. Peoples, what's a highlight of the series for you?
I mean, earlier we were talking about Mafaju's win streak. So, I mean, what a better highlight with Elzon almost ending it. That just sounds insane. That sounds crazy, right? I mean, it was crazy that by what I heard, that she almost did end Mafaju's basically her taking down everybody.
You know what? Let's just pull that highlight up right now, Mr. Editor. Do that right now. Game 3, both players down to 1 health. The turn before, we're looking at the turn before. With 13 health, Mafraju, with several puff caps in her deck, decides that she feels comfortable enough to play Glimpse Beyond, cycle into more cards to get to a tool to find her own victory, unaware that Elzon was representing 12 points of elusive damage that turn that she could not stop. Look at this right now. These units are not elusive. What do you have to fear about them? Just fearsome units? Yeah, you can block those, right? Nope, we've got 2 spells right here. The Sumpworks map, and, oh, I forget the name of that spell. Insert it right here, Mr. Editor. And just going in for 12 points of elusive damage with 3 card draws. If Mafraju had hit 1 puff cap, that would have been the end of her win streak. Wow. Oh man, that was insane. And Peoples, I'm glad you brought that up, because I almost forgot about what is probably one of the more exciting moments in the series.
Intense.
But Monty, I didn't forget about you. What's a highlight of the season for you?
I gotta go all the way back to week 1, the very first recap episode with Elzon's Soul Cleave and Nivea play. That was absolutely incredible to watch go down, and I'm so glad we got to experience it and share it with everybody in that broadcast. And it's a memory that's gonna go down in my mind as one of the best from this first champion draft series.
Yeah, Elzon bringing us a lot of fun moments in this series. Really glad to have her as one of our competitors, of course. So looking forward to all the games that she brings for the rest of the season. But that basically wraps up this current show. I want to take a moment to bring our schedule for week 5, where we have, oh my lord, a lot of rather exciting matches. We have the Brazilian blood match, which I'm sure Joey and I will get into next week's recap. She's going to be there with us. Capitao and Mafraju. You know what? If anyone is going to beat a cracked Brazilian player, it might as well be another cracked Brazilian player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about this match, Joey? Because, I mean, Brazil's guaranteed to win, right? No matter the outcome, but...
Hey, it's just like that seasonal where we had 2 Brazilians in the finals, you know? Anyway, I'm cheering, I'm happy, right? But yeah, it's gonna be a very different competition, I feel like, and maybe a tier above, because we all know Brazilians play better, right? So maybe a tier above for everyone to see a Brazilian versus Brazilian match is gonna be very interesting for CDS.
Definitely going to be very interesting. Okay, but another match we've got next week, Monty, it's your boy Tempo versus the player that stole his second place spot last week, Puffball Panda. It's going to be a tight match to see if Puffball can secure her lead over the rest of the competition, over the series, or if Tempo can just take it back. It's going to be a real intense match. How do you feel about that one?
You know, like you said, it's going to be a tough one. It'll be intense for sure. Puffball has shown that she's here to compete and she's here to throw punches with the rest of them. So I can't imagine she'll go down easily, but you know I got to give it to the Demon Lord. He's going to win. There's no question.
All right, no question. You heard it here first, folks. Now, Peoples, your boy Aikado is going to be up against Absolution next week. And if you were watching the interviews I did with Absolution and Aikado this past week, both of them talked a lot of mad shit about each other. Absolution said that Aikado was a non-threat, and Aikado said that there is no way in hell he ever loses to Jim Ketterman. That deck just does not have a chance to win. So, I mean, it's going to be an entertaining match either way. But like, how do you feel about this matchup?
I mean, Aikado said it best. I don't know. I don't see him losing, but hey, I could be proven wrong, right? Like, it's Absolution. He did rob Chip. That's all I have to say. We don't know what he's capable of.
Yeah, and finally, we have the Ramus Ranch Rangers, coached by Elzon, versus Spids' The Redeemable Qualities. Both of these players probably going to be relying on this match to give themselves a fighting chance back into the top 4. This could potentially seal the deal for both of these players. So everything is on the line for this matchup. Oh man, what a tense schedule going right off of this break back into the Champion Draft Series. I am so excited, but thank you to all of my guests here today for joining me on this very special episode. Not necessarily a weekly recap, more of like a half-season recap, a semi-season recap, if you will, and looking forward into the next season and then going into the finals. Oh man, this has been such a great series, but thank you all for joining me on this episode, and we'll hopefully be seeing you all on again rather soon, but until then, have some fun games on ladder.